So I'm doing deafness in Dalmatians. Dalmatians are usually born with normal hearing, but then some become deaf after a few weeks, and it can affect one or both ears. Dogs with normal hearing in one ear are likely to live normal lives.
My fault.
While those that are deaf in both ears are significantly handicapped. Hearing loss is associated with melanocytes, which are cells that produce and contain pigment. Melanocytes can pass on pigment to other structures such as hair or the iris of the eyes. They are also vital for the functioning of the inner ear. They don't necessarily know how they are necessary for the function, but they know that they are. Then between 18 and 30% of all Dalmatians are deaf, with only 3 to 8 are deaf in both ears.
So are you saying the 18 to 30, then it's unilateral?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, 18 to 30 unilateral or bilateral.
Oh,
but
okay.
Then the 3.8 are bilateral.
Okay, gotcha.
And then the proportion of affected dogs is lower in countries that exclude blue eyes from their breed standard. So the genetics of deafness. Normal parents can produce deaf puppies. There's no test to detect if your dog's a carrier or not, so you just have to read them and find out. Deafness is also associated with the extreme piebald gene, which the extreme piebald gene causes the whiteness of most of their coat, and it can also cause the blue eyes. In some dogs, the extreme piebald gene has incomplete penetrance, so these dogs have a patch of dark fur larger than the normal spots. So like this dog, he's got completely black ears and a black tail.
Mm-hmm.
These dogs are also less likely to be deaf.
Okay.
And then deafness is also more likely when the animal has blue eyes, as the extreme piebald gene has max penetrance in these animals.
Say that again. What did you say about penetrance?
It's maximum penetrance
Okay.
when they have blue eyes.
Okay.
And then Dalmatians are homozygous recessive for the extreme piebald gene. So this gene occurs as a linked polygenic disorder in which inheritance of the gene makes it very likely that genes that cause deafness are also inherited.
Okay. So it's kind of a complex thing. It's not.
Yeah, it's
a
not caused
simple-
by one simple thing, it's
Right.
multiple genes.
And then it's harder to control and get rid of.
And then the location of the piebald gene has been located in the genome, but it has been yet to determine the mechanism through which it causes deafness. And then to diagnose it, mild behavior changes in affected puppies, but some normal puppies show poor response to the auditory stimulation. So you can't just look at a dog and say if it's deaf or not. So what they do the brainstem auditory evoked response test, or BEAR test. It's when a noise is delivered into each ear in turn, and then the brain response to the noise is detected via electrical sensors that are attached over the skin and the head, like this picture. And this test is the only way to ensure a dog has normal hearing.
Because that's really what that's doing is whenever you hear something, the sound waves are transduced into electrical impulses on the auditory nerve and it goes to the brain. And so I can see where that's the only way to do it, because then you send sound into the ear, but then it's transmitted on the auditory nerve up to the brain, and you're detecting that to see if that connection's working, basically.
And then puppies are usually BEAR tested around 5 weeks of age, but then you can also test your dogs at any age after the 5 weeks. And then this is just an example output from the BEAR test. In the middle, you can see this is the output from a deaf puppy, so it's not reacting to the stimulus.
So that's the brain waves of the deaf puppy. Yeah.
And then on the top and the bottom are just normal responses, if they were hearing. So, what do you do with deaf Dalmatians? The only dogs that have been BEAR tested and provided to be able to hear in both ears should be used for breeding, so you shouldn't breed a unilateral deaf Dalmatian. And then the Dalmatian Club of America also suggests that bilaterally deaf puppies should be put down instead of being placed in homes. This is because deaf dogs are at a higher risk of trauma. Since they can't hear, they will wander out into the road, get hit by a car, and they can't interact with other dogs the same way because they can't hear like the aggressive behavior.
So that's an interesting recommendation. Anybody ever have a bilaterally deaf Dalmatian, and can you tell us a success story? Or, because I'm a dog lover, so I would like try to train it or something, you know what I mean?
We have people that come into the store that have deaf dogs, like completely deaf dogs, and a lot of them will use the vibration collar, so not shock collars, but like a vibration, so they could get their attention, you know, if they are out
Okay.
of earshot, or not earshot, but out of sight, so that they
Right.
can focus them, like, because they could all train them with hand signals as long as you're looking at them, but getting them to
Right.
actually focus
Good.
on you
Okay, I
is
see
the
what
problem.
you're saying. Did you have a comment of?
Some trainers with deaf dogs use actual sign
Yeah,
language.
yeah.
And they do very
And
well
actually,
sign language.
that's not bad to train your dog for certain signs. Why is that?
When they get older, because that's what I'm doing with Shadow. He knows signs and,
That's one of the first things that goes.
well, we're working on that.
All the farm dogs I remember, they got deaf. And when you're a kid, you're not very friendly. I remember Butch. Butch was looking that way. He was like a 15-year-old dog, all gray hair, deaf. Me being a kid, what I would do would walk up behind him and go, Butch! In the ribs. And him and I were buddies, so he knew I was kidding him. But you know, yeah, it's good to do. It's good to do hand signals.
My mom had a 17-year-old Sheltie who was diagnosed with cancer and ended up being deaf in both ears
Yeah.
and was a brain tumor.
Yeah, they're gonna. If they live long enough, they're gonna get hard of hearing.
And he never freaked out and got at me because I
Right.
was too.
Right.
Like you guys said, they are more difficult to train too, which
Yeah.
could make them become aggressive. So that's why they suggest this.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay. Other questions, comments about Dalmatians? They're an interesting breed. Do they shed at all?
They should like the short hair.
I cannot believe how they shed.
It's white.
It's amazing.
We have a family that has 3 of them. They have
You
3
think that short hair won't shed at all?
dogs.
It sheds all over.